All right, welcome to the Infrascale September 2017 partner webinar. It's Campaigns on a Budget, Tools and Guidance to Generate New Business. My name is Derek Wood. I'm the Director of Channel Enablement here at Infrascale. And today's session just kind of bounces off what we've been going through the last few sessions, which is really looking at guidance and best practices and what we've seen and how to really grow out your business, some of which using Infrascale disaster recovery services as a baseline for that, and then others that you could use for any part of your business. So we did from tactical to strategic services in July. And in August, we talked about getting your unfair advantage, specifically with public sector customers because of some of our security advantages in the market. Then we went through a customer evaluation tool and grade card system that you could use for any service. And then this month, we're doing campaigns on a budget. We will be recording this session like we do all of our sessions, and if you go to our YouTube channel, which you see the link here at the bottom, you'll be able to find all the previous sessions. So if you didn't get a chance to attend those, you can see them there. If at any time you have any questions or comments about what I'm talking about or what we're covering, or if there's something that I haven't covered like to hear about, go ahead and use the question function and go to webinar. If you're joining from a mobile or a tablet, you'll find the GoToWebinar app has at the bottom part of the screen the question function. You click that and you can go ahead and type away your questions or comments. So before we get started, I'm going to do our first poll. We only have two today, and it's mostly going to be really just kind of working through tools. So I just want to get an idea of which services from Infrascale are you currently reselling, either just cloud backup, just disaster recovery, or both, or are you not yet a partner and this is your first taste of what our partner program has to offer? Today's session is going to be a little different. We're not going to be very heavy on the slides. We're going to be reviewing some of the new resources and tools that we've posted to our Partner Resource Center and just kind of walk through the strategy and using those to help your customers and to generate new business. Awesome. Okay, so 75 or 74% are reselling both, 13 only cloud backup, 4 only DR, and 9% are just kind of kicking the tires. So welcome to you, possibly new folks. Hope to have you on board. But let's get right into it. So over the last year, what we did here at Infrascale is we reevaluated in the summer of 2016 our channel program. So we surveyed all of our partners to get an idea of what was working, what wasn't working, and one of the major common bits of feedback we got was more help generating business. So we relaunched the program aimed at specifically that. In addition to a number of other things like better communication, which we addressed with a mobile app, which we'd still love you guys to get on board if you're not on it yet. And what we've found in the last year of working individually with you all was how certain campaigns work and don't work, and what your past experiences have been with working with third-party companies and trying your hand out. Overwhelmingly, what I found was the experience with paying third-party marketing services to help drive new business, so to expand beyond just your referral business base, just didn't work out so well. It was usually a combination of very expensive and low return, or it was just kind of a one-and-done type of deal, or a combination. And that's pretty much what I expected, because it's pretty standard. Toe dipping into having a marketing engine is a very hard thing to do, and if you just want to do one campaign to test the waters, that can be an expensive and often lackluster result. The importance of really going through campaigns in a transparent way is that one, you don't leave any gaps, and two, you know that if you have a well thought out campaign, that you have a repeatable structure that you can use for others. You need some organization so that you don't miss deadlines. You need organization so that you don't, almost miss a deadline, but you end up sacrificing quality to meet the deadline. And then, of course, just getting the whole team on board. And this isn't just true of companies that have small or don't have marketing departments at all. Even a lot of marketing departments that I've worked with, you find that people get into bad habits, and it becomes somewhat of a siloed operation. The sales department doesn't really know what's going on from the marketing perspective, and vice versa. And so there's a bit of a get the team on board missing element there. And then if you do the whole plan, you should be able to determine whether or not a campaign is going to be a good campaign or a bad campaign before you even launch. And that's really important, not just so that you can delay a launch so that you can make it good, but so that when you have a campaign that works or that doesn't work and you go back to see what your projections were, you have very specific areas that you can evaluate, so you can determine what can we do better and what can we stop doing. A lot of times what I find is the experience is something a little more like this, to blatantly steal from South Park's Underpants Gnomes episode, for those of you who are fans. Phase one is, let's get a list, let's spend a lot of money, and we'll hit the phones hard, we'll send emails, and then, things will happen, and then big profit. And this sort of plan doesn't really work out. And if you do end up making your return, it's going to be mostly by luck, and it's certainly not repeatable. So the solution is to, find a way to plan and review. And really what I find is, to avoid becoming a victim of chaos, is to find a simple and repeatable framework in which you can do multiple campaigns, and you're always improving. Now, for those of you who have been to the other webinars, you hear me talk about agile methodology quite often. That comes from my background as a Scrum certified product owner. But agile is really something that you can apply to business development, product development, anything. It's just a framework that gives you a way to plan, execute, evaluate, and then repeat. And with that comes customer feedback, whether it's your internal customers, so in this case it would be your sales team. How good were the leads? How good is the story that we're telling? Did that work? Should we do it again? Should we do something different? And this way you can have a very adaptable approach, because marketing is a lot about human behavior, and the tactics that work change over time, and they change pretty frequently. Everything from strategies and how you write your subject lines to how you design landing pages and where your calls to action are and what they are. These things evolve, so it does take a bit of agility to make sure that you can repeat success you've had, and also to avoid failures that you've had. One big thing to understand about any type of lead funnel and marketing campaign is that there are a lot of steps involved, right? And with each step, you have to be thinking from the customer's perspective of, why am I going to do what this company obviously wants me to do, right? The customer doesn't care what you want. They have their own interests. So how do we communicate the value to them so that they do go through the steps that we're hoping they go through? So that they open the email, so that they read the email that we get, they click the link, and then get to the landing page we've set up for them. And then how do we get them to register that next step? That way we get their contact information. Or how do we get them to call us? At each step, you have to be thinking, what's the value that we're delivering? For this webinar, what is the value that we're offering to get you to, give our partner success managers a call? hopefully after this, you see a framework, it's exciting, and you still want some guidance, and so you're going to call your PSM to say, hey, we just saw the webinar, that looked really great, we want to start working towards something. So you have to be thinking about what value are you presenting to the customer, accepting that they don't care what you want and that they have their self-interest at top of mind. So with that, let's look at some tools. So I see a number of you on the line who have been working with me on this since the very beginning of the relaunch of the program, and you're going to be thinking, God, that's so much better than what we had. Well, I have to thank you, because working with you directly influenced where we got today. So, and the rest of you could thank these partners too. So, Ed, Tracy, you guys are in good company. Okay, so first, when you go to the Partner Resource Center, one thing that I added this morning was a new campaign in a box, and it's a ransomware themed campaign, and it includes pretty much everything you need to run a campaign. It has some basic stats on ransomware, good for fodder in an email or for talking tracks, landing page copy, a PowerPoint presentation, email, and then we have this other folder, and you can download this in a zip file from the Partner Resource Center today. And in the zip file, we have all the graphics from our marketing team as far as banners to use on your homepage, ebooks that complement the topic well, different landing pages and the HTML and the assets for those landing pages, and some social ads. So if you wanted to run some Google AdWords and you need a little banner, you're going to find it in there. So this is the first of many to come campaigns in a box. This way you can take the information we have, and hopefully with this new planning tool, you can operate on your schedule and not mine. So let's get into the campaign workbook. So the campaign workbook is really just everything that you would want to have included as far as the major factors and required items to run a proper campaign. We use the same format for our own campaigns. The only difference being that we do have some marketing automation tools, so some of that information is captured and analyzed there. But for the most part, when you have a collaborative campaigns with multiple parties, a spreadsheet in Google Docs like this is a nice way to go. I also, in the campaign workbook that you download, I put a link to a YouTube video that's a condensed version, so it's not a full webinar, it's about 18 minutes that walks through this as well. So as soon as this is over, you can go to the Resource Center, download this document, and then you can watch that, and it's going to be a pretty similar walkthrough. So the first page is just an overview. What's the overview of the campaign? Who are the major stakeholders here? I filled in some basic stuff for task lists, so tasks that pretty much aren't going to change no matter what kind of campaign or who you're working with. And you would need to add and just keep people on track. You have to put the owner's name, the due date, and the status. Just basic task list tracking. Step 0 is just a confirmation that the product is properly onboarded. It is a really unfortunate situation if your marketing team does all this work and they get the campaign together, they're ready to launch, but then we come to find out that the technical team really isn't confident enough to get in the line with customers yet. They haven't really used the product. They need to get something in line. We can assist you with this. We can set up trainings. We also have our SEs available for you to use, and they'll just act as part of your company. No need to, if you want us to be a part of Infrascale or a part of your company, that's your call. And we'll help as much as we can. But I thought I'd just put a basic checklist together for all departments, so even including accounting. And this is, just kind of a why not put it here. Okay, so when we really start getting into a campaign, step 1 is to define who it is that we want to make money with. Who are the people and from which types of businesses. And this is a very helpful step, and it's really an absolute critical step, because your messaging is going to be different if we're talking to the C-levels of a company versus talking to the mid-management or the guys on the ground doing some work. So you have to make sure that you understand who it is you're speaking to so that you can communicate a message that is going to resonate with their concerns. Again, always putting yourself in the customer's position and what is of value to them. Basic persona is region, and then I like to, rather than base company size off of revenue, I like to do it based on employee count. A lot of that is because there's a lot of automation, and you can have very small companies with high revenue counts that'll be misleading. Employee count from an IT and managed service and DR perspective is going to be a better indicator of how much data there is to protect, how many machines there are to manage, and the size of the network. So I like to do it on employee count, but you could add revenue here as well. Industries, you can be inclusive or exclusive. If you don't have a particular industry that you do want to target, I at least recommend maybe trying to identify industries that you accidentally do better with. So, by no effort of your own, you happen to have a lot of medical customers. Well, maybe you should, put those as a priority. So you can prioritize this. Now, the helpful part about putting a persona down is, in addition to developing the message, is that it takes a lot of contacts to run a good webinar campaign. For example, if we're contacting people that don't know us and we don't know them, you need something around 50,000 contacts to get about 10 to 15 people to show up and about 40 to 60 people to register. It's a lot of contacts. Fortunately, we do have a service that makes this affordable, so you don't have to go out and it's not our service. We have a company that I've been working with for over a year now, and they're terrific. They have a model where you just give them this persona, you give them the email that you want to send out and the dates to send them out, and you pay a flat fee per registration, and it's very affordable. In fact, I haven't found any model that comes anywhere close. The company is Market Intelligence, and if you contact your PSM, you can get an introduction, and if you've worked with me, you've probably already had an introduction with them. But they're a great resource to get that registration count up, whether it's a webinar or a in-person event, or simply just an email campaign. Maybe you're trying to get people to download an ebook, something of that nature, really anything. And they have a lot of other marketing services as well. But in this page, you would fill out your personas, and then you would start documenting your list counts. The easiest list counts would be the ones that you already have. So how many of your existing customers would make sense for this campaign as upsell opportunities, or just to keep up to date? And then how many contacts do you have that aren't yet customers but maybe could be? So this is where you start taking advantage of your database and growing that. Then we look at supplemental contact lists and things like going with Market Intelligence, if you've recently bought a list, and any other options you have. And this is important because without the number of contacts, at least estimated, we're not going to be able to do a projection, which is an important part that we'll get to in a minute. Okay, so we've defined the persona. Now let's define, what are we going to talk to them about? What brings value to them, and why are they going to open our email, register, attend, and then eventually buy something from us? Now this is bringing a campaign theme and abstract together is something that does take a little bit of practice, but it's not that hard. The first thing is understand what your company's values are. Once those values are clear, defined for everyone in the organization, then we say, okay, so what services are we trying to sell, and what company values do those exemplify, right? So I put some example abstracts in here, and what you end up doing is you find out, okay, these are the values and this is what we want to sell, and then it becomes kind of a human behavior action again, and kind of a writing skill. So I like to follow the Challenger sales model, which is an educational approach to help consumers identify why they would want to buy something from you. So you educate them in a way that they now identify a need that they didn't have before. In the case of backup and disaster recovery, it's often a fear that they didn't have before. And in IT security, that's pretty normal, right? So we're paid to be the experts in what the latest threats are and what the solutions are to those latest threats. And so we have to educate our customers. You look, these are the big issues today. We need to address them for these reasons, and here are your solutions. Pretty simple. So we try to take an educational approach. And then an abstract is just a simple kind of hook, couple of sentences, and then some main bullet points of what you're going to talk about. And then you can wordsmith this, for over a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And what's really nice about having an abstract is that this is the hard thing. To get something that has substance in such a few amount of words is a lot more difficult than to write, 1,500 word blog post or something. So once you get something really small, then you can actually start developing really nice cohesive blog posts that are only 500 to 700 words. It's easy to fill this out. You could use an abstract to work on your own ebook or another webinar campaign or an article with a PR agency if you have one, or if you meet a writer. So storing your ideas of value propositions to specific personas, it's good to keep a history of this because you don't want to have to start from scratch every time. So this is just a good practice to try to keep track of these ideas that you and your team come up with. And again, I have some in here, and these are certainly viable. Sometimes the same abstract works well with a number of different titles. And that's when you can start kind of A/B testing. So you can, your webinars don't all have to be unique. You can recycle content, and that's okay. Especially if you're going after new prospects you haven't talked before. They haven't heard it before. Why not? No reason to make running a campaign and generating new business more costly nor more complicated than it really needs to be. So once you have a couple of these abstracts, then eventually you'll have some presentations, and then each new abstract and presentation just becomes that much simpler to put together. So this is going to be the basis of your landing page, your email invite, and your talking points. It's also critically important that you keep your sales team and anyone who is customer facing in line and on board with what this message is. So in line meaning they're up to date, they know the message. On board means they agree with it. One of the worst things you can have in your sales cycle is you have all this momentum from the invite 2 weeks before the event, and then you have the follow-up emails to remind them that they have the event in a couple of days, and then they show up, they're excited, they answer all the right answers to all the right questions, and then they call in. And it's a great conversation, and then you get your technical team involved. And then the technical team is often left out of these types of discussions, and they say, well, I don't really know why they would say that. There goes that's a huge cut down in momentum. So it's very important that with any campaign, you have the entire organization on board moving in the same direction. So if you've worked with me in the past, you know that one of the things I always push for is to do a full team training with a baseline presentation. It's okay if it's not final. In fact, I prefer it not to be final because then we can get buy-in from the other team. We can get really good feedback from the field. The people doing the work, talking to your customers. We get their feedback, we incorporate it, and now we have something everyone loves and can get behind. And that's when I find that campaigns, their life and their productivity goes far beyond the webinar that we run. And you find success with a well-run campaign for months. Okay, so that's the what. And then we have the when. So this is just a schedule. So I put it together so it comes up in a graph so we can kind of see a visual aid for where we are in the project. Your schedule is not just on when you're going to run the webinar, but it's for each critical component or each major area of tasks. So I generally have, planning session, finalize theme, training, launch, Launch requires a landing page and the email to get done, so that's enough. So you want to keep this kind of high level at your milestones, and this is just another way to make sure that everyone's on the same page. I also include in here some sample emails, so it's also a good place to start brainstorming different emails. Email strategies is changed a lot. So about a year ago, we went away from the very kind of sexy looking HTML designed emails, and we just started going with plain text. We dropped the complexity and the content to where now we try to keep it under 100 words. For subject lines, depends who we're talking to. For you all, when you saw the email to this invite, the subject line was Infrascale webinar series, because you guys know what that is, and hopefully by now I'm doing a good enough job and the content is good enough. I'm getting the content requests from you all, so I hope it's good. That's okay. But if it's somebody that we've never talked to before, they don't know who we are, it's a little too early in that relationship to start pitching them on a service. What we're really trying to do is just ask them for some time. So your subject line is perfectly okay to just do that. Hey, do you have an hour next week? Or hey, do you, if it's an in-person seminar, hey, are you open up for, a dinner and a drink? Something like this. And these styles of subject lines work very well because it's an appropriate question for the state of your current relationship with it, which is nothing, right? So at this point, you're just trying to, hey, you want to have a chat? That's normal. For your existing customers, you probably wouldn't do that. For your existing customers, you can be more specific. For example, for those of you who are just now adding a disaster recovery as a service option and you didn't have one before, maybe your email to your existing customer base is, we'd like to set an appointment to reevaluate your security services, or we are reevaluating your security. And then in the body, you can have a little bit more detail, and you drive them to a landing page or some scheduling application or something of that nature. So that's kind of the the really quick short. Again, if you guys ever want more information about kind of going through this and you want to bounce some ideas off of us, give your PSM a call. I'll be happy to join and participate as much as I can, and so can our PSMs. So this is what we've kind of built out the program to do, and why we've hired people specifically to help you make money. Okay, then comes in the budget. So the whole campaign was, how do we do this on a budget? Well, if we say that we're not going to do a venue, so we just put the venue cost to 0, and we're just going to do registrations. There aren't many nationally operated IT service providers. Typically, you have a pretty sizable region, and what I've found is that you're generally going to get somewhere between 30 and as many as 60 registrations. Now, I've done some campaigns with some of you on here today where we actually had 120. It was a surprise, but it was a happy bill to pay. But the relationship with market intelligence makes it very affordable to have that many contacts. Again, we talked about needing about 50,000 to get about 40 leads. Market intelligence will send that many emails on your behalf, and you only pay for the ones that register for the event. So you only pay for people that show interest. There's not much better lead generation than that. So if we say 40 registrations, that's $1,000. I also like to do guaranteed gifts and a prize giveaway. And the strategy behind this is based in human behavior. We're not competing, or we're not trying to get people interested in the content. They're already interested. That's why they're reading about this offer. I usually put this at the very bottom of the email. So they've already opened the email, which means they're interested in the topic. The giveaways are to compete with similar events of similar topic, or completely different events, but at the same time. So what we're trying to do is we're just trying to push people a little bit over the fence. The guaranteed gift is for the pessimists, the people who don't think they're going to win anything. And so they're not motivated by a really cool giveaway. They're motivated by something guaranteed. You know, $10 Visa gift card, or you can make that a little bigger if you want. Typically, you would expect about 25% to show up to your webinar, so you can estimate from there. The Amazon Echo or some gift to give away is to motivate the optimists, the ones who they don't really care so much about a guaranteed gift, and $10 isn't so much, but hey, the idea of winning something that would have cost them, you know, $100 to $200, that's enticing. Of course, if you go overboard on this and you're giving away, you know, some sweet boxcar set, some people may and will definitely sign up just for a chance to win the prize. So you don't want to make your prize too big. I've found that around the like $150 range is a really good range to, you know, do what your goal is, which is just to tip people over, but not to attract people who have no interest in what you have to say. So this gives you your budget, and then we finally get to our projection. Now the projection and doing the math is something that is hard if you don't have experience in marketing, and that's why I've put this together for you all. So when you look at a lead funnel, especially with email-based campaigns, you have a lot of steps that you may not consider to be steps. So you have first opening the email, separate of reading and then clicking the link in the email that we want them to go to. And then once they're at our landing page, we have the call to action of register now, you know, give us your contact information. And then you have the showing up. Now attendee rating, there's not always a whole lot you can do. That's also part of the gift giveaway, so you have to show up to be a part of the drawing and show up to get the gift. But anyone who registers is a valuable lead. Attendees have the benefit of getting a speech beforehand, and they have a lot more information before they get in the first call with an individual sales representative or lead qualifier. And then you have to kind of look at what your conversion rate is. Not all of you will have this data, especially if most of your business comes from referral, but we can, you know, just make some estimates. You got to start somewhere. So make an estimate, you know, try lowballing it at first, and then you adjust after you find out what your actual conversion rates are. So the figures that I would expect you all to look at very specifically would be your average deal value per new customer. So, you know, what is the average contract value for a new customer? And then for upsells, and you have to be, this has to be specific to the product you're looking to upsell, what is the expected deal value there? Now you also would probably want to modify your open rates, click rates, and registrations for your current customers, because this is going to be a lot better. You know, for people that don't know you and you don't know them, if you're getting a 10% open rate, you're doing a pretty good job. Even if you're getting a 5% open rate, you're not really that upset about it. You want to improve, but this isn't anything to be, you know, hanging your head in shame about. That's, you know, fairly typical in email marketing. And this gets harder every month. So when you look through this, what I've done here is taken the information we had in the other pages as far as who we're marketing out to and how many contacts you have, and we are projecting what a potential ROI for this event could be. So, and I decided last minute, you know what, I'm just going to show for the whole funnel. Why not? So at the risk of complexity, you don't have to touch any of this stuff. It's just going to calculate it out for you, but this should give you a projection of how many opens you should have, how many clicks, how many registrations, attendees, opportunities, and closed won. Now the opportunities is larger than attendees in this case because you also, registrations are leads. So it's a conversion both from registrations and from attendees to opportunities. And then based off of this, we should see what our projected ROI is. This is also a big part, you know, for any of you who are Google Cloud partners, or even if you are looking to do an event with Infrascale, use this workbook for whatever event you want to do, and doing a projection like this is going to make it much easier for the powers that be, for Infrascale to approve some fund requests. We have an MDF, Market Development Fund program, and you have to kind of fill out this basic information. Tell us about your campaign. If you were to send us this workbook filled out for your campaign, really you could just send us this figure, but seeing the math work out, this is going to be valuable when you go to any vendor to ask for some financial assistance in any campaign you want to do. And the fact that it'll be so organized is going to immediately promote the level of confidence that that vendor has in you to actually deliver on this. Again, stay organized. It's going to help you out. And that's the campaign workbook. Any questions on how to use the campaign workbook and what's included or not included? Obviously, if you have a call down service, or if you have resources to actually call your existing customer base, absolutely try to plan that as part of your campaign. If you do that, you'll need to add a separate column to account for that. But generally, if you were to do a webinar and you had a call down campaign alongside it, you'd probably be safe to assume that 60 to 70% of your registrations are going to come from the people you contacted by phone. So, take that, the same contact count, and right now we have 30 registrations. It's probably going to be closer to 60 or 70 if you have a call down service. Now that takes additional training, additional human resources and time, but that's a perfectly good option and highly recommended if you have the resources for it. All right, no questions on this just yet. You guys like this? What do you think about it? This is available for you to download. I'd recommend downloading it and then just uploading it into your own Google Sheets. That way, for any new campaign you have, you can just copy the new sheet and not have to start off with a new Excel. Keeps it centralized. Okay. For an overview of how to use that, again, if you go to the how-to section, see how to use the campaign workbook and how to use the customer evaluation tool, which is what we covered last month, and I'll touch on a little bit today. All right, let's return to the land of presentation. Okay, so that's the plan for the campaign as far as what's the message, how are you going to get people there, your sales team is trained, but wait, we have to make sure the follow-up is in order. You have to make sure that you understand some basic principles of follow-up, like the whole idea of momentum behind a campaign. Momentum generally is time. So of all the soft science and human behavior, one of the really hard sciences that we have is time to follow up is absolutely critical. Every hour that you wait to contact somebody that shows interest in what you have to say is a significant lost opportunity. So the chances of you closing that business drop off in a non-linear fashion. So it's not, not calling after the first hour is not half as bad as calling after 2 hours. It's a non-linear relationship. So you have to make sure your team's on the same page of the story and that they're also on the same page with their responsibilities. You want to make sure that everyone's clearly understands how many calls they need to make in order to contact all the leads you've developed. That's where that projection comes in. If you can project how many leads you're going to have, you can start planning out, okay, look, we're going to run this campaign. You're going to need to schedule so many hours for that day. So just keep your schedule open because you're just going to need to hit the phones. Or maybe you have a lead qualification team available and then it just goes into that. And that's great. So you have to make sure that this kind of comes with it. And if your business is primarily set up and based around referral business coming in, having an influx of even 30 or 50 leads is going to be not an easy thing to get through, especially if your first few phone calls go quite long. They're an hour or two each. Great phone calls. That's good, but what's not good is that you have all those other leads that are getting colder and colder and colder. So you have to make sure that you have the discipline to first call is just to schedule the first call, right? Let them know what you'd like to talk about. the value that they're going to get out of that first call. You know, are they going to get an evaluation? What kind of thing? What kind of information should they show up to the meeting prepared with? Who might you need on the call? So, you know, this case, your first phone call and outreach is 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're on to the next. And then that is a very scalable way to have, you know, one person reach out to 50 people in a single day. And it's, you know, just kind of working up the follow-up. And again, our partners, success managers are here to help you through that, as am I. I got some positive comments on the workbook. I appreciate it, guys. And for those of you who are, you know, Ed specifically, wishing, where was that workbook when we did the campaign? We still had a good time, but the workbook came because of your feedback, so I appreciate it. Okay, so the other part of the feedback is some of the other tools we've released. So the DR evaluation tool is built to be quickly filled out and given a very clear evaluation of where a customer stands in terms of different disaster recovery scenarios or different downtime scenarios. So we're not going to go through that today, and you can check out our YouTube channel for the previous recordings of that. And then there's also a how-to, which I just showed you. But the DR evaluation tool is also in the Partner Resource Center. It's right next to this campaign tool to download, and it could be used for your initial evaluation. You could expand on it for a full evaluation. You can do it for a re-evaluation of your new customers, you know, that low-hanging fruit money. You know, it's easier to make money from your existing customers than it is from new, because you have a whole relationship to build first, whether you already have one. The next would be looking at the customer grade card. You know, this customer grade card, at the end of the evaluation, you would be able to say, hey, you know, in these, at least in security and business continuity, you're not passing. And we don't take customers unless they're passing, because passing means that we have the tools available to do our job so that we can guarantee that your business is going to be running. All the efficiency and cost savings and cool new productive tools, none of that matters if your business doesn't run. And we just don't take customers where we can't guarantee that. And then there's your first quarter objectives for that customer, right? Very high level, they understand it. It's in a language that is very familiar to anyone, technical or non-technical. Everyone's had a grade card, and they understand what this means. It also gives you, like we talked about in the last webinar, a nice roadmap so that you can focus on specific areas of services and not get lost in the weeds arguing over, you know, the $10 difference a month for this firewall versus that firewall. You're just talking about, look, we need to get you from a C to a B, and that needs to happen yesterday. So this is what we're going to work towards. And what you find is that this is going to give your customers a more valuable understanding of what you're doing for them. They're not going to think about you as being the people that, you know, come out of the woodwork to fix things and then disappear again. You're going to be the company that, you know, every couple of months comes out and gives a kind of a status of the high-level improvements that you've done in the real life scenarios in which have changed. So, you know, hey, when we first got on board, you didn't have any proper backup or DR. You know, you just had a local backup on site. And with the new ransomware threats today, that's not viable. It would have taken us 28 hours to recover your entire network in the case of a ransomware attack, which would have added up to an estimated $150,000. After the work we've done the last couple months, we've now gotten that down from 28 hours to 2 hours, which means, you know, virtually no loss, but, you know, potential of maybe 5 or 10,000. And then all of a sudden you have this valuable relationship. You're now a business asset. You have other business group leaders in that meeting. Now you can start moving on from security and business continuity and start looking at efficiency. You know, how can we take over your vendor management? We want to look at some of the tools that your people are using and suggest some improvements or some consolidation. If you have virtual CIO type services, that would be a part of it. And then your customers end up growing as you grow with them, from the basics of, you know, a foundation around disaster recovery, then security and prevention tools and services, your reviews, then cost savings, efficiency, and all that. And so you put your customers on a natural path without even formally saying so. It's just by nature of how you've organized and communicated what you're trying to do for them, which is valuable. The way this changes is that you're no longer simply charging a monthly fee for what ends up being a very tactical thing, which would be reporting on, your basic email blockers, viruses removed, problems fixed, whatever it is. Now you have a much more strategic relationship in which you are bringing things back up to a higher level, showing the strategic value of where you are in managing their IT and where the improvements are. It's hard to understand why people would pay you a lot of money if all you're doing is showing them reports about, emails being filtered. Anyone can do that, but not everyone can be awesome enough to give me a grade card and show me real-life applications of where our risks have been reduced, where our productivity has been enhanced. All right, so now this is going to be the end of the presentation, and I just want to give a review of kind of the Infrascale messaging, and this will be good for you new guys as well. I'm sorry, you may be new guys as well. So why Infrascale? Well, it's simply a matter of business today that everyone uses a computer to operate. And operational uptime is key. So we've built tools to eradicate downtime and data loss, which are both significantly negative when it comes to a business staying in operation. Our strengths are in protecting mixed environments, being virtual or physical, Windows, Linux, or Mac. We can get the whole spectrum, and that's not true of all services. Having an offsite protection into a secure cloud that we've built. So we are cloud development experts, first and foremost, and we chose to use our expertise to build backup and DR services. And with that also comes, us being kind of on the front lines of providing recovery flows and different monitoring tools to really address the growing and still growing issue of ransomware. Infrascale was founded formally in 2011, which came off of another company that is more consumer focused for SOS Online Backup. In both cases, we did pretty similar things. With SOS Online Backup, we were the first to take direct-to-cloud backup and make it affordable for the SMB market, where previously it was only for enterprise. I mean, I don't know if any of you were messing with online backup, in the late 2000s, but it could be like 14 grand for a terabyte. Making that affordable. And then now we're doing that with disaster recovery, and that's why we were awarded or labeled as one of the main leaders in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for disaster recovery as a service, was because by leveraging the cloud, which we were able to do because we're cloud experts, was to lead the market in what customers need. The speed of recovery, a guaranteed 15-minute recovery time for any machine into our cloud. That's not something that you see from any other disaster recovery provider. And if you look at the neighborhood we're playing in, IBM and SunGard, from a cost comparison, there is no comparison, right? That's the difference of small, medium enterprise, or even just enterprise, and then Infrascale, which is going to cover the whole gamut. There's another report that you can look at. So you can go to our website and you can check out the Gartner report if you haven't already. And we also have a recording of our presentation that goes into Gartner a lot more specifically to explain how you can take advantage of this, what being a leader in the Magic Quadrant means, and why that's important for both you and for your customers. But these additional reports, what they did is they broke it down by environment. And that's because Gartner is traditionally an enterprise-focused company. But what they've done is they started breaking things out, and they evaluate vendors even in the small business space. So they have low complexity environments, medium, small, medium enterprise, mid-enterprise. And we're number 1, number 2. And then for small and mid-enterprise, we dropped to number 6 because we don't have AIX support just yet. and that was it. And even these RTOs and RPOs that they have here, 12 hours, we just blow those out of the water. We tried to use other clouds before we built our own, and it was because that was as fast as they could be that we decided it wasn't good enough. So again, we're looking at 15 minutes to restore, not 12 hours. So if we were able to bring down that requirement, we'd certainly be still the top. Some other features are the drag and drop orchestration. Again, this is a huge time saver, especially now that full site recovery is a lot more common than it used to be. Before ransomware came around and started infecting entire networks, there was a report the other day that was showing that the average ransomware infection on a network encrypts 20 machines in addition to the servers. There aren't many events that do that much damage at once, short of a natural disaster or fire, something like that. So the frequency of full site recovery was really pretty low until ransomware came about. Now all of a sudden it becomes a major concern for everyone. And so by building out a boot orchestration function, we take the complexity of, okay, it's going to take, with a basic backup, bare metal backup system, it's maybe 4 to 5 hours per recovery, including preparing your recovery environment. When you look at a basic environment, that even something like this that has only 6 main roles or servers, even if it's virtual, that's a lot of time, it's a lot of steps, which means there's a lot of room for error, which are delays, which is more lost money. And then you start plugging in your users, and none of that's documented. That's why the worst IT guy was always the one that was there before you, because what he set up isn't documented, or she. Boot orchestration allows you to document a full site recovery directly in the application that you're going to use for recovery, and it's actionable. So you can just hit that run button. All of a sudden, all the boot groups that you've set up are going to start lighting up, and you'll see them populate and be available in the UI. You can also have email alerts, but it doesn't take that long. You have wait times so that you can schedule different scripts or run books to run so that you can make those configuration changes so everything works copacetic. This is a huge time saver. You can do full test recoveries of an entire environment, and what used to take $4,000 or $5,000 in labor is now a single click of a button and maybe a couple verifications logging in remotely, and then you're done. So how much more accurate can you be? When you look at the services you provide in a cost-benefit analysis, backup testing, huge costs, but a huge benefit. It's a necessity, but your customers aren't going to pay for testing. They expect it to work because they're already paying for you to set it up and monitor it. When you have a DRAAS system, that cost gets brought down. So now you can actually test more often, and you don't have to charge as much or at all. If you just wrap that into your services, that's ideal. What that does to your internal promotion is that people didn't want to promote it too much because it's a lot of work and it's not very profitable. So now it's so easy, it's nearly a sale. A lot of our customers, a lot of you even, have told me one of the first things you saw that really convinced you to come on to Infrascale was just seeing how fast the recovery was. And that's the reason. So again, what that does is it puts you in a position to get out of the basic tactical services, and now you're looking at true strategic evaluation and managed services. Okay, some updates. So those of you who are in the program, if you haven't yet downloaded the Infrascale Partner Central application, do so. It is becoming the cornerstone of how we can communicate very quickly. We try not to send you too many emails, and this is the way to do that. So here it makes it easier to find the resources you're looking for, to find new recordings, to find the how-to videos, to find new partner resources. We can't email you every day telling you about the new stuff we've done, but if we have a little feed here, it makes it easy. Additionally, if you have a large sales team or a marketing team, they would have to know the login to the dashboard to get to the Partner Resource Center. If they just download the mobile application, they don't need to. So talk to your PSM, And that way everyone in your team can get access to this. That way they get all the product sheets, the sales sheets, the ebooks, everything that we have available to help you promote, market, sell, and position the service is now much more accessible. In the Partner Resource Center, you'll find the new items right under the templates. So you have the customer risk assessment, lead gen campaign plan, which is what we spent most of the time going through today, and then the campaign in a box, which is just a zip download full of all the assets that you would need to run a campaign. In here, you also have some co-brandable resources. So this new infographic, what you want to look for is the EPS icon or link next to the file, and that'll be an open format that you can open up in Adobe Illustrator or something. So your designers will be able to co-brand those documents for you. We also have a new support portal, which I'm a big fan of. It's so much easier to navigate and to see. I love the preview section. So when you do a search, it doesn't just bring up the title, but it gives you a preview of what the article contains, and I find that terrific. It's so much more helpful than kind of the traditional, here's a title, open it, and then figure out if it's what you want, and if not, hit back a bunch of times. So with that, my final poll before we close out. We have an early access program, and this is for really feedback on all fronts. It's for early access for closed betas. It's for feedback on any program changes, or if we want to do a survey for what kind of information or documents can we add to the resource center, what kind of tools do you need. So let us know if you're fine with us reaching out to you and getting some question and answer. Sometimes it'll be a phone call, sometimes it'll be an email. If at any time you want us to stop, you just let us know. That's not a problem, but it's always nice to know ahead of time. Appreciate it. Okay, so that'll end it for us today, and we'll go straight into questions. There's my mugshot. You can go ahead and add me on LinkedIn. Be more than happy to connect with you all. Any questions about the workbook? First question. Who do I need to contact to help me go through this? Your partner success manager. So, if you're currently looking at the partner program, whoever your main contact is now, and then they're going to have a counterpart to their region, and they'll be able to help you with these things. If you're not sure who your partner success manager is, you can always just shoot an email over to sales@infrascale.com, and they'll be able to answer for you and then set up a meeting. Yes, this is going to be recorded and posted. Thank you. Another question, can we use this campaign workbook for any of our services? Yes, so I didn't include anything specific. This is really just kind of what you would do if you wanted to put a campaign together. I hope that as your company grows, hopefully by virtue of using some of these tools and some of this guidance, that you selling more of our services is part of that growth. But I take the kind of all boats rise with the tide approach. If you guys are doing good, then so am I. All right, great stuff. What's next month? I don't know. Well, I have a couple of options I'm looking through. I think we're going to have next month be a big. We have some releases coming out in the next couple of weeks, so we're probably going to focus on the new product releases for both disaster recovery and cloud backup. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions, shoot me an email and let me know what you'd like to hear more about. Even if it's an elaboration on some of the previous content we've done, more than happy to always be improving by always getting customer feedback. Agile, I just can't stop. Sorry. All right, now you guys are just making me, yeah, now you're just buttering me up. So thank you so much for the time today. I think that'll do it for us. And again, contact your partner success manager or send an email to sales@infrascale.com and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. Or me, that's okay too. And we look forward to working with you. Cheers.